Good day to all. So let's see here. What will we talk about? This would be sort of like a little bit. We're still watching what's going on in all the states so far as the people picking process. But what I was going to talk a little bit about was uh, this is something that kind of needs to be educated upon because people don't know a lot about this going on. And so let's see if I can get. It's kind of bright right there. I'll move better spot here. This has to do with tyranny and how. Let's see here. Persecution. I'm trying to figure out the best subject. But this will all tie in to what is the movement now. There's Evie. Hey, Evie. She wants me to love on her. So, back in the old days, some of the history that we remember that was sort of taught correctly at some point in time, you had a thing called Hitler and Nazi Germany. And then you had the Jewish people who were persecuted, singled out, and pretty much attempted to be annihilated because of a religion that they had. And so people don't really seem to quite grasp the concept that 90% of what was going on and how it was all done was that movement was done by the people. The military was involved a lot, and you were seeing a lot of military forces, but 90% of the time when you've seen that took place, it's because of reporting of Jewish people being held or something to do with that by their neighbors, of the people next door who were indoctrinated by the false belief of propaganda that was in place, okay? So a lot of times it was their own neighbors or even family members, that were scared for their own self at the time because of something. Anyhow, so we'll fast forward a little bit. Not far, but a little bit. Then you got a place called China. In China, you have, at one time it was, now, hold call, don't mess me up now. You had Falun Gong, and I believe that's what the new style of the Uyghur was. I said Uyghurs from the get-go, but Falun Gong sort of was as a movement after that, but it's based on Christianity just like the Uyghurs. They're peaceful people. Even, the Falun Gong, the Uyghurs, all these people were extremely peaceful. They're extremely courteous. That was the downfall. But, a lot of people would often ask, well, why didn't these people, whenever they were being investigated, just lie and say are you a Jewish person? And and they would just, say, no, I'm not. I'm a Nazi like y'all, because the fact that these people had passion and they weren't going to lie to themselves and they were true to their faith because they had morals and they knew they were going to a better place because we do have a God and a God will judge you at the end, And he wants somebody who's going to be on his side. And it talks about in the Bible how you may have to die for your beliefs. That's a real thing. So anyhow, back to the subject at hand here. With the same thing with the Uyghurs and Falun Gong, the Communist Party couldn't accept these people into society because they knew that these people had a higher thought process. In other words, where they weren't reliant on that system. Okay? If you rely on the Communist Party, it grows and becomes world dominant, which is their main goal, I guess, of some sort. But anyhow, so in order to preserve their higher power and not have anybody go against what they're trying to do with their agenda, they started producing propaganda and making it, and plus, through implements of a lot of more technology so far as surveillance, made it where if you were, you would it's better if you don't associate with these people. It's better if you do know these people, if you want to turn them in, we'll give you a higher social credit score because you're helping the Communist Party, and the Communist Party in China is actually sort of like a ramped up version of what Hitler was doing because of the fact they have technology now that wasn't available back. Well, or there was a lot of stuff back then. I like to do a history of technology and what is actually being withheld from us, considering what is out there and what we think is out there. We are really technologically suppressed in the general public for a reason, but that's a whole nother video. So, with the Communist Party, they're able to really put the pressure on common citizens to find it in their best interest to kind of go along with with lines of society because of the fact that they've been able to take people away from the Falun Gong or the Uyghur religion where they had a higher power God where they didn't listen to a person, they listened to a higher God. They had rights that weren't given to them by people, they're given to them by the higher gods. Their rights are just no different than what we want, which is freedom and freedom of speech and just the right to be able to prosper as much as we want to or as little as we want to. If you want to sit around all day, well, that's all you get. If you want to work, hey, you can have whatever you want if you get out there and hustle. And see, that scares the Communist Party if you're able to think that way. Now, let's go forward a few more years, not too far. We have a thing called, we had Democrats and Republicans, but now I think we've got patriots, but we don't need to start a second party because of the fact that we don't need to split the vote. If we split the votes, probably end up, the way it looks with public parties, we don't know. That's a whole other video. But we'll just kind of nip it in the bud and say that right now we'll just call it Republican and Democrats. We'll argue about that later. All right. Well, all up through the years, it was okay. Everything's a test course when it comes to how people react in certain situations. So you'll see things happen that are allowed to happen for a reason because they want to see the kinetic energy become, or the energy that happens afterwards. The after effect. You've got potential energy, then you have energy to be. That once it's released, it's in motion, and they want to see the after effect of that and how it settles. So through the '60s and all that stuff. And then you had, we started kind of going global whenever we went overseas and, we tore down the wall, which is, I'm not arguing on any kind of aspect of what's good and bad about that, but we're just looking at things to where you see social impact. They want to see social impact. And this was all probably about the time whenever or global leaders like high elites really started getting involved with government because they knew that they could sort of like swing things in a certain direction. And they had to figure out the momentum that's built up, the potential. They have to figure out where it starts and the momentum and the ending effect. They do that through the economy, but that's a whole other video too. But anyways, back to Democrats and Republicans. Well, so by slowly eroding society, or not society, but freedoms, by taking those as well, eventually you'll notice a pressure point where things become as built up as possible so far as potential energy. A spring, we'll call it a spring. You've loaded the spring. You keep pushing down on that spring a little bit by a little bit, then you've got the spring completely compressed and it's ready to release its energy. Now, we're in kind of that phase, okay, to where we've got a lot of people that are just building up little by little. We've got several generations, that some that are really old and some that are middle-aged and some that are young that are all kind of like coming together in one side or another division, okay. So, you'll have this is what I'm talking. This is propaganda. So not to get off subject. This is how it's happening to us so far as what's happening to China, what happened to Hitler in Hitler days with Nazis. We have now put a situation to where a thing called a patriot is almost a bad word. You'll see patriots and you'll see people react to patriots like they did because they were like bad people. And all we were really fighting for, or all we are fighting for, is just freedom and God's rights, just the ability to prosper and to be free. And, I'm not saying live a lawless life, but just, a life of not so much constraint and just freedom of, your own will to do one way or another. And that's somehow or another, being propagandized as somebody trying to overthrow something or take over or tyranny to the other extent. But we just want freedom. I don't care what anybody else does. I just don't want to be messed with myself. and that would be the same for the other person. And as long as you weren't stealing my riding lawnmower, I don't care. You know, that's the kind of way I look at it. So, and that'd be any other regular American, but now that's kind of demonized to the fact that they think that, you know, and this is all, now the propaganda and what's created this scenario is all the false narratives that go behind what happened in January and what happened with how we reacted to what happened in November. I don't want to start naming too because I'm trying to run this video without getting zipped. And then you've got a lot of issues where they, how they had false heroes, and a good example of what I'm talking about is in a society where you want to flip things around, there's a handbook that describes how to do this. A lot of it's written by Karl Marx, and you reverse everything. Truth is the lie, lies the truth. Up is down, down is up. You turn dirtbags into heroes. You turn heroes into dirtbags. Anybody that stands up for American freedom, you make them seem like some sort of awful redneck, take her over, just awful person. But in all, we were just trying to stand up for the freedoms of everybody. So, in other words, we haven't got to the point where we're being, like that's how, like, so say for instance in China they harvested them organs off of them poor people. Nobody cares because they feel like those people are bad, and to live life and be able to prosper, you better off just not messing with them and leave the situation alone. Then the Communist Party will leave you alone. So let us harvest the organs from them people. Okay, so you apply that to what's going to happen now to people who stand up for the country and how they're going to be treated in the legal system and also just the social system, because it's better off to not associate because of the fact if you want your little bit of freedom that we may give you, you better not associate or even try to go this way because of the fact that you will be part of the bad people. What they don't realize is that little bit of freedom that they're getting, same thing in China, same thing that because if you look at back all the history, all the people that were there that participated just to have that little bit of freedom, that stuff closed in on them and then took them. It ate them up just as quick as it ate the rest. It was just a vicious cycle to where the only thing that was left was what was chosen by the elites. And they even ate themselves up to where the society collapsed. And it's all in history. So you've got people now who are going to stand against us because they feel like it will help them contain the little bit of freedom that they have left now at this point. Well, those people are going to get contained as well by the people that are containing them. And then that way they'll preserve their little bit of freedom. And of course, they don't realize that on down the line is less and less and less to where the fact that where you just look around and you have nothing. So this is the whole point. But the whole thing is like we need to see, like, we need to be able to make sure that we keep our morale up. We don't let these people, we do not let these people take our thoughts and dreams away from us because of the fact that that's what drives us to be who we are, and that's what they're trying to do. Just erode a little by a little, death by 1,000 cuts. Death by 1,000 cuts. You don't feel it all at once, but after a while you'll bleed out. So what you do is if you can just be aware of this and know this is happening, we need to make sure at a grassroots level that we start a really peaceful movement so that we stand in line we stand in the line of people who say we don't stand for this anymore. That's what we need to do. I want to know where that line is. Somebody tell me, where's the line that I stand in so I can tell people that I don't stand for this. And that's all we got to do. And we get in numbers and we make our voices heard. And then I'm sure and I'm very confident we're going to have a really beautiful outcome. And not to mention the camaraderie and all the people that get to be able to see what a beautiful movement that would be and peaceful. That right there drives a narrative in our direction. And like I say before, all the people that's worked against us, we forgive those people and we try our best to bring them over with us because, then once, you do that, you have a wonderful, you have a fighter that'll be right there with you. So, just know that that's what's happening a little bit there and all. And that's sort of the cycle of things. So we don't need to come to that point. So anyway, so just a little bit of a video of like tyranny and cycles and in waves and how it's all been perfected. And that's kind of the direction they're going to try to do with us patriots. They want to separate us from the regular people, put patriots in a bad place, and then be able to try to annihilate us because we're looked at as bad people. And if you allow this propaganda from television shows that these people in these television shows, that's all this stuff is now. Oh my goodness, if anybody had any, if you could only see what I could see, if you're able to, you would turn the television off. You would just say, "I'm sorry, I'm not buying into this anymore." And when they can't drive their narrative anymore, then they're absolutely powerless. Facebook is doing nothing but just absolutely making sure through. People don't realize that they can control people in a certain way with flashing lights and colors because of the fact that our brains are wired up to be able to react to certain things and all that in pattern forms. And so when you're watching all these television shows and you don't even think you're being subjected to it, well, you've got another thing coming. I know that this sounds kind of out there, but I promise you that there has been millions and millions and billions of dollars in the studies of human habits, how people react to be able to perfect what they're doing right now. Knowing it makes it a lot easier, so it's not so effective. But still, subliminal things come through a lot of that stuff, and it can really turn little knobs. And that's why, when you're watching all these fancy television shows where everything's so perfect and the production is just so excellent, it just doesn't. You can't get any better. There is some probably really bad things that are being pumped through a lot of that, and you're going to be subjected to it, and it can really actually, it just does things. So, first things first is to be aware of what they're doing, and probably do your best at all to be aware and stay away from that propaganda as much as possible. I really, that's all I can do. So anyway, so we'll end this now. It's been a super long video, and anybody that made it through the whole video, thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. It's just been absolutely wonderful. All the movement that we've made so far, all the new subscribers, and all the wonderful people that comment. It's just absolutely amazing. So thank you very much. And I just want everybody to know that God is definitely in control, and there's a reason why we're here. If you're watching this, there's a really good reason. And if I'm making this, there's a really good reason. So that makes two really good reasons make a super really, really good reason. Anyways, thank you very much. And like I say before, God is in control. All right, bye.